Welcome back. Let's read some more. But I forgot to close my door. So let's read about this engine. It's been very hot in my apartment every day and I'm tired and sneezing. But every day is like this. So the next half year will be like 30 degrees every day. So I like to continue reading. No, I cannot laying in my bed waiting half a year to next winter.
Pratt & Whitney TF30. The Pratt & Whitney TF30, company designation JTF10, is a military low-bypass turbofan engine originally designed by Pratt & Whitney for the subsonic F-16 missile fleet defense fighter, but this project was cancelled. It was later adapted with an afterburner for supersonic designs, and in this form it was the world's first production afterburning turbofan, going on to power the F-111 and the F-14 Tomcat, as well as being used in early versions of the A-7 Corsair II without an afterburner. First flight of the TF30 was in 1964 and production continued until 1986. Design and development, edit. In 1958, the Douglas Aircraft Company proposed a short-range, four-engined jet airliner to fill the gap below its new DC-8 Intercontinental, known internally as the Model 2067. Intended to be marketed as DC-9, it was not directly related to the later twin-engine Douglas DC-9. Pratt & Whitney, P&W, had offered its JT-8 a turbojet for the airliner, but Douglas preferred to go with a turbofan engine, which would have a greater fuel efficiency than a turbojet. P&W then proposed the JT-10, a half-scale version of its newly developed JT-8D turbofan. Development of the new design began in April 1959, using the core of the JT-8. Douglas shelved the Model 2067 design in 1960, as the targeted U.S. airlines preferred the newly offered Boeing 727. In 1960, the United States Navy selected the JT-10, designated TF30P1, to power the proposed Douglas F-16 missiler, but the project was cancelled in April 1961. Meanwhile, the TF30 had been chosen by General Dynamics for its entrant in the TFX competition for the United States Air Force and USN, which was selected for production as the F-111. The version of the TF30 for the F-111 included an afterburner. Operational history, edit. F-111, edit. The F-111, F-111 and F-111E used the TF30P3 turbofan. The F-111 had problems with inlet compatibility, and many faulted the placement of the intakes behind the disturbed air of the wing. New F-111 variants incorporated improved intake designs, and most variants featured more powerful versions of the TF30 engine. The F111E was updated to use TF30 P103 engines. The F111D included the TF30 P9/109. The FB111A used the TF30 P7/107, and the F111F had the TF30 P100. RAF F111CS were upgraded with the unique P108 version, using a P109 engine mated to a P107 afterburner. The F111 engine business unit, later taken over by Thai, at RAF Base Amberley, became the world experts on the TF30 in the years after the USAF retired their fleet and achieved extraordinary increases reliability of the TF30. The TF30 proved itself to be well suited to the requirements of a high-speed, low-altitude strike aircraft with a relatively long operational range, and F111s in all guises would continue to use TF30s until their retirement. A 7. Edit. In 1964, the subsonic LTV A-7 Corsair II won the U.S. Navy's VAL competition for a light attack aircraft to replace the Douglas A-4 Skyhawk. The A-7A used a non-afterburning variant of the TF30, which would also power the improved A-7B and A-7C. In 1965, the USAF selected the A-7D as a replacement for its fast jet F-100 and F-105 supersonic fighter bombers in the close air support role. Though the USAF had wanted the TF-30, Pratt & Whitney was unable to meet the production timetable, because its facilities were already committed to producing other engines. Instead of producing the TF-30 under license for P&W, the Allison Engine Company offered to the Air Force its TF-41 turbofan, a license-built version of the RB.168-25 USP. The USAF selected the more powerful TF-41 for the A-7D, as did the USN, for its similar A-7E. F-14, Edit. The Grumman F-14 Tomcat with the TF-30 P414 was underpowered, because it was the Navy's intent to procure a jet fighter with a thrust-to-weight ratio, in clean configuration, of 1 or better. The U.S. Air Force had the same goals for the F-15 Eagle and F-16 Fighting Falcon. However, due to reliability issues with the intended Pratt & Whitney F401 engines and the intent to incorporate as many of the systems of the failed Navy version of the F-111, the F111B, into the project, it was deemed that the initial production run of F-14s utilized the F111B's power plant. The F-14's thrust-to-weight ratio was similar to the F-4 Phantom II, however, the new fuselage and wing design provided greater lift and a better climb profile than the F-4. The TF-30 was found to be ill-adapted to the demands of air combat and was prone to compressor stalls at high angle of attack, AOA, if the pilot moved the throttles aggressively. Because of the Tomcat's widely spaced engine nacelles, compressor stalls at high AOA were especially dangerous because they tended to produce asymmetric thrust that could send the Tomcat into an upright or inverted spin, from which recovery was very difficult. The F-14's problems did not afflict TF-30 engines in the USAF and RAF F-111s to nearly the same extent. The F-111, while technically designated as a fighter, was actually used as a ground attack aircraft and tactical bomber. A typical ground strike mission is characterized by less abrupt changes in throttle, angle of attack and altitude than an air-to-air combat mission. While it can still involve hard and violent maneuvers to avoid enemy missiles and aircraft, these maneuvers are generally still not nearly as hard and violent as those required in air-to-air combat, and the F-111 is a larger and less maneuverable aircraft. Though the F-14 entered service with the Navy powered by the Pratt & Whitney TF30, by the end of the decade, following numerous problems with the original engine, the Department of Defense began procuring General Electric F-110 GE400 engines and installed them in the F-14A Plus, later redesignated to F-14B in 1991, which entered service with the fleet in 1988. These engines solved the reliability problems and provided nearly 30% more thrust, achieving a 1:1 dry thrust-to-weight ratio with a low fuel load. The subsequent F-14D, a combination of both remanufactured forward/upgraded F-14As and new manufacture F-14DS, also used F-110 GE400 engines. Variants, edit. Source: XTF30P1. 8250 lbf, 36.70 kN, thrust. YTF30P1. TF30P1. 8500 lbf, 37.81 kN, thrust. 18500 lbf, 82.29 kN, with afterburner. TF30P10. Similar to -1 with a fuel filter heater instead of a fuel filter, initially powered first two prototype F111B. TF30P2. 10,200 lbf, 45.37 kN, thrust, intended to power the F-6D missiler. TF30P3. 8,500 lbf, 37.81 kN, thrust, 18,500 lbf, 82.29 kN, with afterburner. TF30P5. TF30P6. 11,350 lbf, 50.49 kN, thrust, powered the A70. TF30P6. TF30P6C. TF30P6E. TF30P7. 12,350 lbf, 54.94 kN, thrust, 20,350 lbf, 90.52 kN, with afterburner. TF30P8. 12,200 lbf, 54.27 kN, thrust, initially powered the A7B /C. TF30P9. 12,000 lbf, 53.38 kN, thrust, 19,600 lbf, 87.19 kN, with afterburner. TF30P12. 10,750 lbf, 47.82 kN, thrust, 20,250 lbf, 90.08 kN, with afterburner, powered the two pre-production F111B. TF30P12. Similar to -12 with a fuel filter instead of a fuel filter heater and deactivated wave-off feature, powered early production FB1110. TF30P14. TF30P16. TF30P18. YTF30P100. TF30P100. Redesigned engine, 14,560 lbf, 64.77 kN, thrust, 25,100 lbf, 111.65 kN, with afterburner, powered the F111F. TF30P103. Redesignated -3 upgraded with -100 components under the Pacer 30 program, 9,800 lbf, 43.59 kN, thrust, 18,500 lbf, 82.29 kN.